Welcome to the Passion for Small Business Workshop Series. I'm Sue Reardon, your business coach, and I'm here today to talk about pricing with conviction. Why is it that when we start talking about pricing, we always begin to second guess ourselves? Instead of being very confident about how we have our products priced, we tend to want to be able to change them and question our decisions. Are they too high? Are they too low? Why are people buying so much? Why are people buying so little? So today it's all about being able to create a strategy, a pricing strategy that will build the confidence in your pricing and help you build your business. In addition, we're going to talk about how to raise prices once you have your strategy set so that you can continue to make sure your company's profitable. But before we get into that information, what I really want to talk about is the core element of pricing, and that's value. Everyone buys, makes purchases, all based on the value that they receive from them. And the value translates either you're solving a problem for me or you're fulfilling a need that I have. So value is really set up in two ways. There's real value and there's perceived value. Real value is the value that when you translate the cost of putting the product together in order to deliver it to the customer, that's real value. And that's a value from my perspective if I'm the seller. Perceived value is really more about how important that your product, my product, is to the customer themselves. And perceived value doesn't necessarily tie into real value. Think of the iPhone. The iPhone has a certain level of pricing that we all pay when we go to get the phone. It doesn't mean that it costs Apple that same amount in order to produce the iPhone. Same with Starbucks. Who would have thought we'd be buying $5 plus cups of coffee? It's the perceived value. The coffee is worth so much to the customers and they're willing to put the money down. So perceived value is critical. Another part of that is opportunity cost. What is it worth to me to pay you to do something that I don't want to do, or that to make a project that I'm doing easier, or perhaps something I can't do anyway? So the opportunity cost, rather than me spend my time, I'm willing to pay you for you to do it for me. There's also an element of competition that comes into play that we cannot ignore. Your customer compares your product with the competition, and they'll only pay more if they perceive your product to be better than the competition. So if your product is in fact better than the competition, you can charge more. If it is not quite as good as the competition, well, then you need to look at charging less. When we talk about value, an important element as well is how we communicate value. You have to be able to really explain to the customer the value behind your product or your service. You don't leave it up to the customer to figure it out. You want to make sure that you're upfront, that they have all the information they need in order to say, hey, this is something I really need. And then you'll get your price. So if a product isn't selling for whatever reason that you have come up with, it really comes down to a couple of reasons. One, either you haven't described the value of that product well enough in order for the customer to perceive it as something that they need. Or in fact, the perceived value just isn't high enough. So you need to be really cognizant of value when we get into the pricing discussion. So how do you determine the value for your pricing strategy? Well, I use 3 C's. Talk to the customer, determine the cost of the product, and know your competition. Those 3 C's are the key parts to determining whether or not your pricing is at the right level or needs to be adjusted. So let's start with the first one, talk to your customers. What exactly is the problem or need that you're fulfilling for that customer? What's important to them? Where exactly is that value? When you talk with them, find out what is it what is the value actually that you're giving them? What are they seeing as that perceived value? What's the most important thing about your product or your service to that customer? How price sensitive are they? Does price really matter? It's important that you're able to determine whether or not that's a key factor. Sometimes we put so much energy because we think that the price is the biggest issue for the client, and in fact, it's much lower on the list. How can you improve value? What would they like to see that would improve their perception of the value that you provide? Talk about your top selling products with your customers. What is it about those top sellers that really make a difference? Why is it that you can get so much of such a strong price for those as opposed to some of the others? And then ask them about those that just don't sell, that they don't seem to have an interest in. Find out what's the difference, what's happening there. This information we're getting from a customer is extremely valuable. It really sets the tone for a lot of the questions and answers a lot of the questions that you have. Besides that, your customers really like to be asked. It raises your credibility when you show an interest in what they're looking for. So be sure to ask your customers. Second, it's all about the cost. So you need to be able to determine exactly what your product costs to develop and to deliver to a client. And that doesn't matter if it's an actual physical product or a service. You need to really list out, identify the true costs associated with your product. And that means all of the resources that go into that product, including yourself, including your own time. Now you say, well, I don't charge time, I'm the owner of the business. No. You need to account for your own time as well if you really want to get the true cost and if you really want to make a real profit. So if you don't know how much you cost, start searching the internet, look at what freelancers make for that type of work, whatever it takes. Get a cost for your own time and add that in as well. Include delivery, include packaging, every cost there is, because the cost of the product is critical in order to determine whether or not your pricing strategy is appropriate. The third C is the competition. Know your competition. Who are they? Is their product better than yours? Or is yours better? If you're better, raise the price. If they're much better than yours, then you need to adjust your price. Also look at why they price their products where it is. What is their strategy behind it? Get as much information as you can about pricing with your competitors. Don't say, oh, I don't know. You'd be surprised how much you can get from your current clients. So when you're talking with your clients, find out what you can about your competition as well. And then you want to continually keep an eye on your competitors' pricing so that you know that when your pricing needs to be adjusted, you'll have an idea of where they stand. So it's talking to your customers, determining the real cost of your product, and knowing your competition. Now, why don't you pause the video, and what I'd like you to do is to just jot down actions that you can take over the next couple of months in order to be able to address these three areas and really be able to find out if your pricing is where it needs to be. Go ahead, pause the video, and I'll be here when you come back. Welcome back. You've done your homework, so now you have some ideas of what you're going to do going forward in order to really determine what your customers think, what your competitors are doing, as well as what it's costing you to deliver your product or your service. Now let's talk about some pricing models. What you want to be able to do is really to establish a maximum price and a minimum price to start with. What is the highest level of price? How high can you go that you don't scare all your customers away? And how low can you go so that you make a decent profit, but it's still low enough that it becomes really kind of the bottom line number so that you have a high point and a low point. That just gives you an idea of the range that you have to play with. If you come up with a break even and you're not making any money, then you need to get out of that business, because if you're not making any money, what is the point? So break-even numbers don't work. If it's costing you as much as you're getting from your customer for it, you need to move on and do something different. So let's talk about some pricing models. There are some limits that we tend to put on our pricing, and those limits really are all about what's in our head. It's a confidence level. So don't let the confidence get in the way. Start exploring some of the options that you have open to you. Be a little creative about it. There's one level that I always look at that I think about when I'm pricing, and that's kind of, in my head, I called it the Goldilocks. You know, Goldilocks went in and she had 3 bowls of porridge, and one was too hot, one was too cold, and one was just right. Well, you can do 3 levels of pricing as well. And with those 3 levels, you can have a high, which addresses the immediate needs, and maybe adds a little bit more and adds a prestige factor. So you can add it and make it a bigger piece, more of a premium package, and that's the high end of your range. You can do a low, which barely addresses the needs, shows the value, but it just doesn't go overboard, and maybe has a do-it-yourself, a DIY piece in it too, so that the customer has to kind of do a little bit more if they want to get the true value out of it. That would be at the low end. And then the medium really specifically, solidly addresses the product or service that you're offering and provides that perceived value at the level that you really want it at, and the pricing comes through. So that's the high, medium, and low. You have 3 levels of pricing. Another way of looking at it is by bundling. You can continue to do the high, medium, and low, but begin to bundle some of your products and services together. When I think of bundling, I think of combo meals at fast food joints. Combo meals have, you want fries with that burger? We've all heard it. You put it into a package so you can offer a training program with 1 hour of consulting services. You bundle them together. Maybe you price that training program a little bit less than what you would if it was being sold on its own, and you do the same with the consulting services, and you bundle them together. You get a decent profit margin, but in addition to that, you're getting more volume, more sales, and the customer sees it as a deal. So that's a great opportunity to think about, and a model that can be used in almost any industry is bundling. There's also add-on services. What about rush jobs? So let's say a customer wants something that they have to expedite it, and they need it tomorrow. Well, you can add additional costs. Well, you will have additional costs, but you can add additional price to that as well because you're providing them added value. We're an immediate gratification society, so given that, by doing rush jobs or offering an opportunity to expedite something or delivering something to someone's home or place of business, all of that is something that people are willing to pay for. So be sure that you're not just giving that away, but that's also an option. I want to talk a little bit about discounting. There's an easy way out is to just take money off when you are trying to sell something. 5%, 10%. Today, 30% seems to be more common. Instead of discounting, I'm going to suggest that you add something to it. Do an occasional promotion that adds an additional piece. Similar to bundling, what you're doing is you're adding additional value so that overall it looks like a good deal to the customer. Be careful of discounting because it eats away at your profit. And once that promotion ends, it's kind of tough to get the customer's head back to the fact that your pricing was less and now I have to pay more. So always think about adding instead of taking away. There's another way to approach things. If you provide, there's a lump sum price for a service or for a product that I have to pay. Instead of doing that lump sum, consider about doing some type of payment over, whether it's monthly or it's weekly, over a period of time. The reason I suggest that is because a lot of people feel more comfortable paying larger amounts over a period of time rather than one gigantic amount. It's just a perception that they have. There's still value to there. You can increase so that when you add up all of those monthly payments, you're actually getting a larger dollar amount than you would have if they just wrote that check at the time. But what it does is psychologically, it helps them to commit to that service or to that product. So think about monthly payments or weekly payments, whatever works best for you. One thing I really want to discourage you from, and that's giving away anything for free. As soon as you give something away for free, what do you think the value is? Nothing. I haven't had to pay anything for it, so it has no value to me. So when I think about giving away a product for free, in my head, I always think AGC. Always get compensated. So maybe I'm not going to get a check, a cash, or monetary value for it, but I'm going to get something if I'm giving that to that client. And it may be that I'm trying to break into a market, so I'll ask for a testimonial for someone that is kind of high profile in the area or in the industry that I'm interested in breaking into. So you're able to get some type of compensation. It may be, getting a guest blog spot on a high-profile blog. Could be anything. There are a number of ways to get compensated in exchange for giving your product or service to a customer. So somehow, always get compensated, AGC. Now we're going to pause the video again, and what I'd like you to do is stop and sit and think about these different pricing models that we went through, the Goldilocks 3-level, the bundling, the add-on services, discounting, monthly and annual fees, all of these different ways of doing AGC. What I'd like you to do is jot down some of those that may be something that you'd like to explore to change and add to your pricing strategy. I'll be back when you finish. Welcome back. Okay, let's talk about when you need to change your pricing, make adjustments. So let's say you've done all your research, you've talked with your customers, your competitors, and your costs are really laid out. You really have a good idea. Your pricing's been set where you feel real comfortable with it. But now it seems, it's been a year, it's been 18 months, and it seems like maybe you need to make some adjustments. Well, take the guesswork out of it and move on and explore whether or not you really do need to make an adjustment. At least take the time to look into your pricing every 2 years. Because if you're not, you're probably leaving money on the table. So what you want to do is to go back through the same process, evaluate your customer value, evaluate the cost, and see what your competition is doing. And when you have it set that you know you need to make an adjustment, being able to let your customers know about it early is critical. It's all about how you communicate it, not the fact that you're changing pricing. So communicate your price changes at least 60 days before they go into effect. It's just courtesy, it makes customers feel more comfortable, and it eliminates surprises. How you communicate is also important, so do it appropriately. If you've got longtime customers, don't send out an e-blast or an email blast that has just, hey, effective such and such a date, our prices go up. They deserve better. So either you make a phone call, buy them a cup of coffee and talk about the new pricing that's coming up, write them a handwritten note, whatever it takes, personalize that communication. They deserve it. They've stuck with you. They're loyal. Let them know. That doesn't mean you don't change the price. It just means that you're very conscious of how you go about it. You can also have tiered rates. There's nothing wrong with tiered rates. You can have long-term clients at a certain level. You can have new clients at a different level. That's actually a great way in order to get prospects that are kind of on the fence whether or not they're going to sign with you or buy your product. By sending out an email to them as part of the email list notifying that rates are changing, you'll be surprised how many will get back to you and want to become under that deadline so that they get to the current rates as opposed to the new rates. So make sure that you always have your prospects on your email list as well. When you put that communication together, be very clear, be friendly. You don't have to go into a lot of detail. And definitely don't apologize. You don't have to apologize for raising your pricing. Remember, you're giving value. The price of the value has changed as the cost of the value has changed. So don't worry about it. Put it out there. The point is to eliminate surprises, eliminate questions, and really be clear about it. You can maintain product integrity by keeping your prices at the right level and still retain your customers. I assure you of that. So go through the process and communicate well, and you won't have to worry about a price change. You'll be surprised. So now you have a good idea of how to establish your pricing strategy for going forward. And when the time comes for you to adjust, we've also given you tips on how to make those adjustments and still retain your customer base. It's important that you follow these tips and these steps. Don't shortcut it, because this is about really making sure that your business can be as profitable as possible, as well as making sure that you have confidence in your pricing. And when you have confidence in your pricing, you're able to really be able to sell and promote your business going forward. So let's sum it up. 1, know the value that your customers want. You do that by talking with them. 2, know the real cost to develop your product and to deliver your product. Make sure you include your time. 3, know your competitive pricing. Know what the competition is doing out there. It's important that you be able to gauge. You don't have to price exactly as they are, but you do need to know what they charge. 4, check yourself. Are you communicating the value of your price so that you can make sure that the perceived value of your customer is as high as it should be? So always make sure that your communication is really done well when you describe your product or service. Evaluate pricing on an annual basis. Don't let it go too long before you take a look, take a step back, don't make assumptions. Really validate it as you're going forward. 6, no surprises. When you are communicating a change in pricing, it's about being clear, it's about being confident, it's about being really courteous to your customers. So no surprises. Make sure that you tell your customers if you're making a price change and tell them when. And use the best way depending upon whether they're long-term customers, prospects, or occasional customers. Make a decision on that and follow through on it. And don't forget AGC. Always get compensated. Make sure that your pricing strategy is a priority, and you and your business you'll find that you'll make a lot more decisions that are based on sound data. You'll have more confidence, and your business will continue to grow. So thanks for being here today. Loved being able to talk with you about all the questions and concerns about pricing. And until next time, remember, why be ordinary when you have the power to be extraordinary? See you again soon.